my husband was very active, so we had a very active relationship. We would go climb a mountain and go do these things. And so as the course of our marriage started to progress and I found pain doing some of these things, it was really hard for us to find things to do together. Symptoms included, it was extremely painful to sit on a couch, sitting in any kind of chair for more than 15 minutes. Traveling in cars was painful. Standing still was painful. Stairs, bending over would cause just severe back pain and spasms, and it'd be this cycle of a spasm, and then your nerve would be pinched, and then you'd have to recoup for a couple days. And so this whole risk versus reward of actually moving versus not moving. I ran a half marathon right after my first daughter was born in 2005, and her delivery was really hard. The delivery was hard, and they suspect my SI joint was damaged in part of that delivery. But after running that race, it was just so painful to run, and it progressed where by the time my second son was born in 2008. In 2008, when my second son was born.
That's another kind of issue.
Yeah, I know. That's what happens when you have 3 kids. We had changed a lot of things in our house. We no longer had a 2-story. We only did ramblers at that point because I couldn't do the stairs. We had to adapt how I carried him, because carrying a car seat, putting kids in and out of car seats, there were just multiple things throughout the day that were very difficult. At that point, my husband went back to school, and so I started running my business, which is a preschool and childcare, which is what my degree is in, and that presented challenges of working with the kids versus paying someone to do all the work for me, because I couldn't pick them up. I couldn't sit on the ground for circle time very long. I couldn't do a lot of these things. And it was right about that time that we finally started seeking medical help for my back. I had x-rays for the first time. They said, yes, you have rotational scoliosis. Yes, your facet joints touch, but you just have chronic back pain and there's nothing we can do for you. And then over the course of about 3 years of doctors recommending physical therapy and just other, muscle relaxers and certain things, it kind of compounded to where the doctors had prescribed me 9 different medications for nerve pain, for muscle spasm, for some of the effects of some of the other meds, for antidepressants, for the chronic pain and just what that does to your psyche and your emotions and your lifestyle. I had gained weight over the last 6 years from the combination of all the medications and their effects, as well as I just couldn't move. I lost hours of every day having to lay down on my back or my side or ice or do different things. And so just the amount of time of my life I couldn't move was compromised. And I couldn't pick up my son from the time he was 10 pounds and up. And so the last couple of years have just been really difficult. Not just for me physically in the pain cycles, but for my kids and my husband and my business. And so I kind of stopped listening to my doctors and said there has to be a solution out there. I am not going to put a rod in my back, from top to bottom. I'm not going to just deal with pain management. There has to be a way to solve this. And so that's when I started researching the SI joint specifically and how that affects everything above it and below it, and the series of symptoms that kind of, ricochet from this one destroyed area. And so many of the stories resonated with me about people's symptoms and just simple things being so hard, and yet there was no diagnosis of a way to fix it. I started researching the iFuse procedure because I wanted to look into having my SI joints stabilized, and I had looked at the research on some of the surgical outcomes, and the engineering of a triangular bolt makes sense. I'm a very logical person, and seeing how the procedure was so minimally invasive and not have to do the bone grafting and all the time off my feet, it seemed like a really good fit for me, but we live outside of Portland, and I could only find a handful of surgeons who had not done very many procedures yet, and so I contacted the Neurospine Institute in Eugene, which is a little bit of a drive, but these were the people who knew what they were doing and had the experience and could help me find a solution. So, with my husband's support, I took the drive and got checked out, and they confirmed what I had suspected and my doctors thought, but my doctors didn't know what to do with. And that was that my SI joints were severely unstable and damaged and causing a multitude of symptoms. And the hope of stabilizing those would, in essence, help repair the damage I'd done. You know, the muscles would regain strength from all the atrophy of spazzing, my posture, how I would sit, everything would change. So, in 2013, no.
2 years ago?
2014. It was only a year ago. So I think it was January 2014, I had my first checkup with Dr. Kitchel, I believe. And then by April, I had the first surgical procedure. It went really well. I went home the same day. I was walking. I had to explain to my kids, yes, I'm fixed, but I still have to heal. And because my kids have been praying for years to have their mom fixed. Anyway, and that was kind of something they really wanted to see happen. And so after the first procedure, I did all the stretching. I did the physical therapy. I did the work to make sure my muscles were getting stronger. I made adaptations as necessary. I healed really fast. And I think it was 3.5 weeks later, I had the second surgery. They were pretty close together. And so 4 weeks after the second surgery, I was wakeboarding. And it was so much fun. And I didn't do tricks. I didn't do any fancy anything. I was very conservative for wakeboarding right after surgery, but it was so much fun. And it was a great trip too, because it was the first time in years with my kids I could just kind of have fun camping with them, because camping's hard when you can't move very well. And so this year I knew that it was going to be about a year mark from the first surgery, and I had this goal that I would run a half marathon. And so many people are like, that's ridiculous, you can't run a half marathon after having 2 back surgeries in the same year. And I said, no, I can. I can do this. And so I started training, and I was very smart about how much time I'd spend running versus cross training and things. And then last Saturday was the race, and it was so much fun to run. I had so much fun running, and this is the fun part, is that the 10-mile mark, I was feeling so good. Nothing was hurting. I hadn't had a single muscle spasm. I wasn't in pain at the 10-mile mark, and I turned to my sister and I said, I feel so good. I want to do a split leap across the finish line. And I jumped in the air and did this big split leap, and then I landed on my calf and it cramped. And to this day, the only thing that got sore after the race was that calf. After the race I stretched and was fine. I took ibuprofen like every other runner in their 30s, and that was it. I didn't have to do anything else. I didn't have to take muscle relaxers. I was fine, and it was a huge success for me. And it was also kind of an emotional thing. As I turned the last turn to see the finish line, I'm running with my sister, and I just started to tear up because I knew how far I'd come in a year. And I just finally had the life I wanted back, and I was able to run across this finish line and see my family there. And after I crossed the finish line, I picked up my daughter, who's 10, and I had her on my back, and I was carrying her around, and it was just this moment of hey, look, your mom's back, and she's strong, and she can do anything to be with you guys. And so that was a really fun race. It was a good race. And this is my shirt. I wore this shirt because everyone wanted to see what I had done to get to where I was. My ghetto shirt.